That.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sustainability and Community Resilience panel discussion. I'm Melody Richardson, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And I want to introduce you to our wonderful group of panelists tonight, starting with Indu.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Indu Unni. I am from Jacksonville, Florida. I have been in the software industry for more than 13 years. And right now I work for Electronic Arts or EA Sports as a senior engineering manager, and happy to be here. That's it. Back to you, Melody.
Thank you. Ebonee?
Hey, I'm Ebonee Walker. I'm here in the Huntsville section. I've been a materials engineer in the Department of War for close to 15 years. And in addition to that, I'm the technical editor on the P3469 Standards Working Group, and I'm looking forward to telling you all more about that.
And Dhivya?
Hi, I'm Dhivya. I work as Assistant Vice President in Deutsche Bank Technology. I work for Scalable Solutions and Microservices, and I've been part of IEEE member and WIE Vice Chair for IENCS.
And finally, LaRhonda.
Thank you, Ebonee. My name is LaRhonda Julien. I work in the utility industry. I have been in the utility industry for approximately 20 years. I am the Power and Energy Society Atlanta Chair. I also am your WiE podcast host and your Region 3 Project Coordinator. Thank you.
So now that you've gotten to know our panelists a little bit, let's jump into the conversation. Indu, this first question is for you. How do you lead sustainability efforts in ways that bring in voices that are often overlooked or underrepresented?
Thank you, Melody. So coming from a software background, right? So sustainability in software, it isn't just about carbon efficiency. It's about building systems, that work for everyone. So that is why bringing in underrepresented voices, it is highly critical and crucial because they help us design solutions which are more inclusive, accessible, and ultimately they are more sustainable in the long term. I have been working in the software industry, which was, a male-dominated industry for a long time, but it's evolving right now. I have seen, firsthand how important it is to intentionally create space for these voices. In my teams, I make a conscious effort to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to contribute, right? Especially those who might otherwise be talked over or hesitant to speak up. This requires, real deliberate actions like actively inviting the quieter members into discussions, creating maybe async channels, right, where they can actually share their ideas more comfortably and ensure that all perspectives are evaluated equally, regardless of who they come from. I have also found that many individuals, they benefit from coaching, so that they build that confidence of, because sometimes they often fear of being dismissed or judged. So as a leader, I see that it's my responsibility to advocate for them, foster that psychologically safe environment, and reinforce that their perspectives are valued and heard. One other thing that I have seen is highly beneficial is, there are these employee resource groups which heavily focus on building communities, and they help create the safe spaces where individuals can share experiences and can learn from others who have had similar journeys. So ultimately, inclusive sustainability, it comes down to intentional leadership, creating environments where people can feel heard, respected, and empowered to contribute meaningfully.
And Dhivya, what does sustainable innovation look like in your field right now? And where do you see the most exciting opportunities emerging?
Thank you, Melody. In my field, sustainable innovation is driven by data, intelligent innovation, and collaborative systems thinking. Today, innovation is not only about building new technologies, but also designing solutions that are efficient, resilient, and socially responsible over the long term period. One of the most exciting opportunities is the integration of artificial intelligence, digital platforms, and real time analytics to help communities and organizations make smarter decisions about energy, resources, and infrastructure. So, from my perspective, sustainable innovation happens when teams like iterate quickly. They have to learn from the feedback and continuously refine the solutions so that it can be useful for both the community as well as the organization, and it can accelerate the transitions from ideas to a meaningful impact.
And LaRhonda, what does community resilience mean to you, and how have you seen it show up in real situations?
Community resilience means to me that communities are able to adapt when things happen. They are able to pivot when there are issues, whether it's something planned or unplanned. I've seen that show up in real life when there have been natural disasters, and it seems like we're seeing more and more of that these days. So when those natural disasters happen, communities are able to rally around each other so that they can have the strength and the resources that they need to rebuild and respond to that situation.
And Ebony, what metrics matter most when evaluating long-term impact in sustainability or resilience work?
Well, from the perspective of working with the P3469 working group, we find that one of the metrics that's going to matter the most is going to be total environmental liability. So you may have heard often about ESG, and that's environmental, social, and governance, where you're looking at things oftentimes like carbon offsets. However, we want to look at it from a different perspective of making something that's going to be auditable, because if you can audit the use of emissions, or um, the escaping, lacking the word, of emissions, then that's something that you can actually track. Because if you can't audit it, what you're really talking about is just marketing. So we want to get to where we're getting away from just being able to estimate things like carbon offsets and having a little bit of hand waving about how we're actually emitting gases into the environment based on our products and our services, and get down to something that's actually auditable, like our financial principles that we have now. Whereas if I go and I buy a share of some Fortune 500 company, I can go pull their report and I know what they've spent on human capital. I know what they've spent on equipment. I know what they've spent on buildings and things like that. So we want to be able to bring those same sort of processes to looking at greenhouse gas emissions. And with that, we're looking at what sort of liability is coming to the environment. So total environmental debt is what we're looking at when it comes to metrics.
LaRhonda, what leadership practices help you build trust across different communities and stakeholder groups?
Thanks for that question, Melody. And it's very relevant to the work that I actually do. In my day to day, I'm not just working across my department, but I'm also working across other departments in my company and other departments across our sister organizations. When I look further from that, I'm also working with different people in groups like this, such as IEEE, which is, as you all know, the largest professional technical organization for advancing technology for humanity. The leadership practices that I use, whether it's in my professional or volunteer role with IEEE, I want to make sure that I'm building trust. And I build that trust by being very consistent in what I say and what I do. I also try to create transparency so that everyone knows what's happening all the time. Another thing that's very important these days, especially with issues surrounding mental health, is to show that you actually care about the people that you are working with and that you're working for. I also find that admitting your mistakes when you're wrong goes a very long way for having people to trust you when you're in your work environment, again, both personally and professionally. Another big thing that people don't often do, because sometimes we can kind of get into a blame game about things, we don't just want to highlight when something goes wrong. We also want to celebrate when things go right. And I think that that's probably the final thing that I'd like to share with you about how I work to build trust across my different communities and stakeholder groups.
Ebony, how do you balance creativity, feasibility, and long-term responsibility when developing new ideas?
The most exciting things is when it comes to innovation, everyone thinks a lot about, oh, what is the newfangled thing? That's the only way of, thinking about innovation a lot of times. But in reality, a lot of times innovation can be taking old things that we know and applying them in a new way. So for us, the math is the new thing that's innovative in terms of our use. And I once again apply that to the working group where we're looking at financial principles. I mean, double double book accounting or double ledger accounting is something that's been going on since the Medicis created it back in, I don't know, 100 years ago back in Italy. But the reality of being able to do double book accounting and apply that principle to greenhouse emissions, then that's a thing that's really new and innovative. And once again, with it being math, something that you can track, something that you can audit, it really gives people in communities an opportunity to say, I understand where your principles are coming from. I understand the transaction. I can make an informed decision as a community member whether this service or this product is something that we want in our community. And one of the most innovative things is something that's very old, and it's just simply the math.
Indu, how do you design projects that continue delivering value, even as teams or leadership or resources change?
So I think this is a very relevant question, especially in today's volatile environment where teams and priorities, they are, you can actually see in real life they're shifting very quickly. So for me, the key is to design systems that are resilient beyond individuals, right? Not heavily focused on who is building the system. This actually means we focus on solving the problem well, and not relying on specific people to carry out the system forward. So when you build with that mindset, continuity becomes very easy as teams or leadership change. Um, I usually prioritize scalable, modular, and flexible architectures, which can evolve over time. Systems should be easy to understand, maintain, and accessible, so that whoever comes, the new members coming in, should be able to ramp up quickly without losing the momentum. Equally important in this is the long-term thinking. Building solutions that are not just effective today, but can adapt to future needs is key. This includes avoiding over-engineering while still leaving room for extension and change. Also believe that, the topic that we discussed before, having a diverse perspective early in the design process, it leads to more robust and inclusive solutions. And when you actually design a system for a broader set of users and use cases, the system is naturally more adaptable and resilient. Given all that, I accept that change is inevitable, right? Whether it's leadership direction, team structure, or business priorities. So even though we design with adaptability in mind, ensuring nothing is too rigid, and that, systems can always pivot, when there is a need. If the vision changes, there is a need for you to actually change the direction. So that is inevitable, no matter what long-term thinking you have, or what is it that you have built, what scalable systems you have built. So ultimately it's about systems that outlast individuals, and they're flexible, understandable, and designed to evolve.
That was a great answer. Ebonee, can you share a moment when inclusive decision-making changed the direction of or success of a project?
Actually do have a good anecdote. This one is actually outside of the working group that I've been working on more recently, and this actually comes from work. So there was a time where I was working on this large contract selection board. So we're talking about a contract that was tens of millions of dollars that was going to be awarded. It was so large that they actually sequestered us while we were evaluating the contract. I was on a team of 3. It was me and 2 other guys. One guy, he was very much into camping and seeing national parks with his family. And to make that happen, they had like a little trailer. It was kind of small, so everything had to be kind of compact and everything, right? So one of the things he was showing me one time while he was eating lunch is he had this it wasn't a Swiss Army knife, but the sort of idea where the fork would pop out and the spoon would pop out and you could pop out the knife. And I said to him, well, how does it come apart? He's like, oh, well, it doesn't come apart. I'm like, well, how do you use the knife with the fork? He's like, well, you know, you just cut things up and then you put the fork out and you stick it with the fork. And I'm like, huh. Not 2 days later, he comes back to me and say, "You never believe this. It came apart." And I said, "Oh, so after I, you know, alerted your mind to this could come apart, then it came apart." He's like, "Oh, well, no, that didn't happen. I was just fiddling with it and it came apart." So he's part of the camping community. I guess none of his buddies, maybe they use it the same way as him. But the point being, until I said, "Oh, how does it come apart?" It just never even occurred in his mind that, oh, maybe this thing comes apart into separate utensils for their use. And it was just nothing that was even on his radar until it was brought up. So that's just to say that sometimes you need that diversity. Sometimes you have to include people who think a little differently from you to just get a whole different perspective on something you've been doing all your life for years. And I think we were successful in general in the contract, but that's just one of those spaces where it's like, wow, you just changed someone's whole perspective of thinking with something as simple as, oh, how does it come apart?
Rhonda, can you share an example of a project or initiative that strengthened a community's ability to prepare, respond, or recover?
Absolutely. And I'm going to take you back for a second, go totally off script, because I heard both Indu and Ebonee mention that they work, as I do, in a male dominated industry. And having those diverse voices, those women in the room, those different perspectives, definitely helps to make those projects more successfully and helps people to begin to think differently. I've had to do that in the particular project that I wanted to talk a little bit about this evening with my Electrification of Native Lands Task Force. It's an initiative that I've been working on for about the past 2 years. And it has, that particular initiative, helped to strengthen a lot of communities, and not just in the United States where I am, but across the entire world. And it's absolutely wild to me that there are so many people that have that mission in mind to help to bring power to tribal and underserved communities. Bringing all of those people together, listening to how they have worked in their particular areas to bring solar or to use batteries or whatever other means or method of hopefully sustainable products and energy that they are using, helps not just them prepare for what's next, but it also helps everybody else who has the benefit of the sound of their voice or reading something that they've written about their successes and about their challenges. All of those things combined, having those diverse perspectives, sharing information, trying new things, helps us be able to prepare for what we might encounter. Because yes, we are very fortunate to live in a first world country where all we have to do is flip a switch. But guess what? There's also people in this first world country who are not able to do that. And there are people in other countries that I have talked to, South America to name one, where they're still using kerosene lanterns and candles. All of the work that I've been able to do, all of the people that I've been able to bring together, us working together as a team in the room, helps the next one and the next one and the next one be able to prepare for their turn to be electrified, or heaven forbid, something happens and we don't have power. We know how it works on the other side, so we can respond and we can recover in a way that is going to be safe and reliable and in the long term sustainable.
Divya, what obstacles tend to slow down innovation, and what strategies help leaders move through them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And based on my experience, I can say that most teams don't lack ideas, but they struggle with execution under the real world environments. One of the major obstacles is the fear of risk. especially if the system is more critical and in production. And to make any simple change also, it can impact multiple downstream services and systems. So teams basically hesitate whether I can do innovation or not. Second, I think is, though there is interest to change system, but there are business priorities. These I can take and these I cannot take. So that's the reason another obstacle for the main team to face. So creating a safe experimentation environment is needed for the manager, so that first setting up a small environment or small POCs, and based on that building upon further, can gain more confidence to the team as well as in the critical systems, so that they feel more confident and move forward. And so agile leadership is basically about the incremental innovation, and it definitely plays a bigger role for the people to move forward with the innovation. Second, clear prioritization. Though there are business priorities to do in a project, they can basically split up which are most prioritized and can include innovation as part of it. So basically, I think that innovation should be part of the project, and it can be of an incremental solution. So the team can build up their thoughts of innovation, and they can reduce their fear of innovation by doing so.
Indu, what helps you stay grounded and confident in leading in spaces where perspectives like yours haven't always been centered?
Yeah, that's a great one. So first one I would say is, I have come this far, and I'm truly grateful and thankful for my journey. But the thing is, even though I have made it this far, there were people who vouched for me, who advocated for me, right? There were voices who were there in rooms that really supported me. So, and I, no matter how hard I work, without some of those voices, at least I wouldn't be where I am. So that is one thing that keeps me grounded. Another thing is that through the journey, one thing I have learned that you have to be really resilient, right? It takes time sometimes for your voice to be heard. So do not give up, right? Continue raising your voice, speaking what you need to speak until you get where you need to be. So that is still something that is still continue. There are learnings on the way on how you get there, but yeah, that's another one. The third thing is, I think this is something I believe now LaRhonda mentioned, right? It's not done yet. I mean, it's like one person then doing it for the next person. So the journey is not, we are not there yet, right? We have not reached the end. So it's like I have reached here. So for me, it is like I have to make sure I pass it down to the next generation or the next community, to the next person who is in the same situation, help them and get them to where they need. So just passing this down, giving back to the community, these are the things that actually keeps me grounded.
Ebonee, what does it look like to build resilience with the community rather than for a community?
Thank you. I had to kind of ponder a little bit, what does resilience mean? So I think from our perspective, it's going to be basically giving tools for agency with the community. So it's going to be not so much this is what you did for the community, but you are building alongside the community. So on the one hand, they need to be able to be informed on what's happening in terms of environmental impact for us with our working group. So I'm back beating that drum. So being able once again to understand the framework, understand how this framework works in terms of social impact. That's the first thing. Then the second part is about when I know the framework, know how it operates, then I can be able to hold accountable any company that's providing a product or service. So once again, that I can make an informed decision about, okay, they want to build a mine. Let's go all the way back there. A mine in my community because it's going to produce aluminum cans, something that we probably run into every day. But what does it mean in terms of not just the footprint, but once again, that environmental liability of what's going to happen to my community if they build this mine here. And we have some way to measure that liability of what will happen. But then the last part is about, once again, we're looking at standards. We're looking at creating a standard. And the thing about standards is it doesn't matter whether you're a multi-billion, maybe even approaching multi-trillion-dollar company, or whether you're a mom and pop shop. When you have a standard, when you think about the numerous IEEE standards that exist, the standard is the standard regardless of whether you're a multi-billion dollar corporation or conglomerate, or whether you're Ebonee Engineering on the corner of Main Street. You're able to say, this is how we implement these standards. Everybody understands this is the framework. These are the measurements. This is how you audit it. This is transparency. So in terms of building resiliency in a community, it's about information and awareness, giving them the tools to hold the system accountable, and that everybody's playing on from the same set of rules.
I like that. Indu, what helps you avoid short-term wins that don't translate into lasting change?
So when it comes to a problem, right, before we think of whether it's a short term or a long term, there are a few questions that we ask, and as a team that we do. It's like, is this the right problem to solve for at this point even? Is it like a one-off issue or like part of a larger pattern? Who does it impact? How broadly does it impact? So these actually first help us understand what we need, right? Whether it's if it's like something that's a one-off, I mean, it might be something less to worry about, but that actually help us ensure we're not optimizing something for a quick fix that doesn't scale or sustain. But even though I say that, I do recognize that there are short-term wins, or the advantages of having short-term wins. Constraints like cost and timelines, they sometimes are beyond our control, and there are situations at that point in time where we have to really go for a short-term win rather than looking long-term. So even if we do long-term, I actually think small wins are something you should celebrate. This was called, discussed before too. We should always celebrate the small wins, because that helps build momentum and boost the team morale and create a sense of achievement. And they should be absolutely acknowledged and celebrated. However, when we design solutions, I always anchor back or think about the longer term vision, and that means building in a way that it is scalable, reusable, and it is in the right place within the right system. Avoiding short-term solutions when they are not in the right path, it requires a strong leadership alignment and trust. So the trust factor, which we discussed earlier, it also comes into picture, right? Are you very transparent with your leaders? Do they know what the problem is? So having that relationship established with them helps in advocating for your long-term approaches or the solutions that you actually want to propose. So that's it.
Dhivya, how can students begin building their innovation skills through small, local, or hands-on projects?
Yes, that's a good question. So basically, students can innovate by just looking around their daily life and asking what's annoying, what's not working well, what can I do to make it a little better. So all impactful ideas generally start with a small, and then they can move on with a bigger solution. So something the students can create as a small hands-on projects that can help them personally, like tracking for their expenses or schedules or small things that can basically give some kind of importance, or that can be of useful to them. So many impactful innovations begin with the small observations, like identifying inefficiencies, sustainable challenges, or the community needs. Some can be the local sustainability initiatives, some small technology prototypes, or community partnerships that can provide valuable opportunities to experiment with solutions and see the real outcomes. When they see the real outcomes, that can be of more motivation to them, and they can start with more innovation ideas. So start with a simple idea, gather more details and test it, build a simple prototype and refine the approach. This kind of process not only build the technical skills, but also develop leadership, collaboration, and solving capabilities for the students that are essential for a sustainable impact.
Excellent. Rhonda, how can emerging leaders contribute to resilience even without a formal title or authority?
Thank you for that. I love talking about this because a lot of times people feel like because they're not a manager or a supervisor or they don't own the company that they don't have any authority or power, but they actually do. And it all starts with influence. They have influence in some type of way in the environments that they're in. It might be with the coworker who sits next to them, it might be with someone in another department, but you use that influence to help you to move the needle a little bit. You get allies, people who are actually going to be in the rooms, who are going to be making decisions, who can help to give you some of that agency and authority, even though you may not necessarily have the title. You can also do things like mentoring. Mentoring, sometimes I feel like it kind of comes in and out. It's a buzzword for a little bit and people are all into it and then it kind of fall off. But mentoring can also help you to build resilience because you are developing that mentee based on your experience. And that knowledge transfer then goes back across the aisle where their mentee is actually helping you with things. And I do a lot of that in my job because in our environment, we have a lot more people who are closer to retirement than we are who are coming into the workforce. We use that knowledge transfer to help to build up people on both sides of the aisle. Another thing, and you heard Indu talk about it earlier, is psychological safety. And I was so excited when she said it because I talk about it a lot when I do my training with my folks. Building that psychological safety, letting people know that they can come to you, that they won't be punished because of it, they won't be blamed, but will use their experiences to learn and to be better, also helps to make more resilient teams and teams that can get things done with people on it who do not have those titles or any official authority.
My last question, then I'm going to open the floor, is to Ebonee. How can students document and communicate their impact in ways that opens doors to partnerships and future opportunities?
Communicate. Join Toastmasters. That's that's a bit of tongue in cheek, but I actually do advocate for that, even though it's the IEEE. I'm going to plug my other organization in which I volunteer a lot. Toastmasters International is an organization that's focused on building communication skills as well as leadership. So in terms of being able to communicate and even document what you're trying to do and relay that information to others, the first thing you got to start with is the basics of being able to communicate. So even if you don't look at or want to join Toastmasters, take a speech class. I did that in college. Take a speech class just so you learn, once again, the basics of understanding who your audience is, understanding how to put together different types of presentation, because wanting to inform people is certainly different than wanting to persuade people. That's the basics. Get some of that basic understanding about how to communicate. Then the second thing I say in terms of documenting, make sure when you're out there executing all the great things you're doing in terms of being a student, volunteering, being the leader of various organizations, that you're not just saying, I was the student chapter chair. Tell about, I'm the student chapter chair and this is what I did. It wasn't I planted 100 trees. It's I used the build a forest in 5 years method to establish trees so that over this number of years we'll see this much sustainability within our environment. Tell how you did it, not just you did something, but how you did it. Document it, make it quantifiable. Tell us how it was done, how much impact you expect it to have, and why is that. Then finally, in terms of as you move through your career and opening doors, you want some credibility. So I would advocate for doing things like joining IEEE technical chapters, the standards not committees, but working groups, and just getting more into some of that technical area so that you can establish some professional credibility such that when you talk about your area, you have something to fall back on in terms of people in that industry knowing who you are. And I guess I'll add one final point, which is talk to other people. So it's not always just about it being a one-way conversation where you're handing out information, you're giving the persuasion, you're telling, your billboard of everything that you do, but rather have a two-way conversation. Take some time to go to those networking events, learn what other people are into, what other people may need, because the reality is you may have some of the tools that they're lacking, and you'll be able to fill in that small gap that they're leaving and be able to help them get to their success, which overall hopefully has all our boats be lifted with the tide, right? So I'd say that's the idea behind being able to communicate and just increase your engagement. Over.
Does anybody have a follow-up to that? Or do we open the floor?
I absolutely agree with Ebonee and Melody. I'm actually going to bring you into this. Melody and I had the opportunity to go to different schools, colleges, universities here in the Atlanta area and talk to students about how to network, how to interview, how to communicate in a professional environment. A lot of things that as adults we probably think is second nature, the students have no idea. It's really important for them to be exposed to and have the opportunity to be able to talk to, have conversations with people in spaces that they want to be in. They can have those people as official or unofficial mentors. And again, hopefully that benefit goes both ways, because when they take that next step into either industry or academia, they may need to reach back and rely on those people that they have communicated or networked with while they were a student. And that could open doors for them in the future.
Yeah, just one more to add to that. So I was at a Grace Hopper conference like 2 years ago. So this was one topic there. So anytime you talk, right, it shouldn't be like a single sentence. That's, going back, it's always tell a story, right? It's not like you spin up a story out of nowhere, but whatever you have, whatever experience you have, make sure you convey that in a story that engages the person on the other side, and that enables them to ask questions. So that in turn, it converts into a conversation. So make sure you always have a story to tell rather than just one line answers. That really goes a long way, was a takeaway from there.
I love that too, Indu. And when I do my presentations, I do tell a lot of stories within it. One thing that I would have to tell students, because they might say, I haven't worked anywhere, I haven't done anything, I don't have any stories. Until you get your own stories, until you have your own experience, you collect other people's stories.
Yeah.
You tell other people's stories. Don't make it in a way that it sounds like, oh, I'm going to co-op it, right? It's going to be mine and I'm just going to add some flour to it. Tell other people's stories. Tell what you learned from those other people's stories until you have stories of your own to tell, and always be authentic when doing so.
So I'm going to open the floor, and since we have a small group, I'll let you come off mute and ask your question. Don't everyone go all at once.
Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful session. I had a question. I know that there was a discussion about how leaders are willing to be coachable, or, like willing to coach their, whoever they're managing. For somebody who is on the individual contributor, like how can they seek such kind of mentorship, or be it through in your teams or be it outside of your working environment? What is a good way to like seek mentorship?
I can start that, and hopefully my other ladies on the panel will jump in here. I am an individual contributor. One of the ways that I have sought that mentorship is outside of my professional organization. Because I'm an individual contributor, there's no one else in the organization who does what I do. If I want to grow in what it is that I do, I have to reach outside of that environment to do so. And I think you heard Ebonee talk earlier about IEEE and about Toastmasters. Join organizations that are going to have those like-minded individuals having those conversations that you want to have. And when you do that, you look at the room, if you will, and you say, hey, this person works at this organization, or that organization, or maybe that person has a certain title for a career or place that you want to aspire to. And then just reach out to them, have a conversation with them. You can do that through LinkedIn, or if you see that they have some type of event going on, or if you're connected with them on LinkedIn and they say maybe they're going to a meeting or a conference or something of that nature, put yourself in the way, put yourself in the room so that you will have that opportunity to broach that subject with them. And a lot of times also when you're working in a professional organization, you're not looking at that person as a manager or a CEO. That person is a fellow volunteer. And because you all are united around one mission, then it helps you to be able to broach that conversation that you want to have with them a little bit easier.
Yep.
I also want to add up, IEEE networking events definitely will give you more opportunities to know many peoples you are not aware of. They can be in your own community or they can be in your own country, and you can meet the likely minded peoples that can be of definitely helpful for you to grow as well as to be more confident and to gain some knowledge from them. They can provide some kind of mentorship to you, though you are an individual contributor in your company, and you can definitely feel like some kind of an encouragement and the support they provide to you that is that cannot be provided within the organization. You'll feel definitely motivated to do more such kind of events and to attend those events.
I think one of the key things would be first to identify what is the area that you want mentorship in, right? I mean, you have a certain thing that you want to grow in. Even if it is within your organization, I have felt, at least from where I work, it's like they have always been open for coaching and mentorship. So if I know what I wanted, like when I was an IC, I was an individual contributor, and then I moved to management like a year ago. So I knew I wanted to shift, and whenever I saw or there was a meeting or a discussion where I saw a leader or someone and I felt like, hey, that's what I want to be. I was never hesitant to reach out and ask, hey, I'm trying this track, could you help me with this? And they were more than open. Like they were like, hey, yeah, sure, set up a meeting and let's discuss. Because one of the main thing there is, like, you should have that connection established first, right? I mean, if what they can offer is what is not what you need, then that mentor-mentee relationship will never work. So ensuring you connect with the right people, right? I mean, having that opportunity, never hesitating to speak up, that's the key. And then they always say a mentor-mentee relationship, it's always driven by the mentee, because you know what you want to gain out of it. They gain it indirectly, but you are the one to drive it. So as long as you have that passion and you know exactly what you want, you connect with the right people, that should be it. So like LaRhonda said, don't be hesitant, just put yourself out there and just seek out who you want your mentor to be.
Yeah, so everyone said basically what I was going to say, but I'll put a little bit of icing related to it in that last year we had at our joint WiE Women in Engineering and Young Professionals YP monthly meeting, or an event we had in October. We had a wonderful speaker, Genevieve Brenner from the Vivid Leader. So she's getting a shout out here. But as we were planning it, she actually just impromptu gave me a coaching session. And in there, she was talking about there's one instance or one, I'll say, failure, for lack of a better word, where it's like you become the best kept secret in your company, meaning that you have all the attributes, you're great, you're a high performer, but only your direct supervisor knows about that. And the reality is you need the people who make decisions to know about that as well. So everything else that LaRhonda, Dhivya, and Indu were saying is like spot on, because you want to get in front of the people who can make decisions. And so she challenges you to say, I'm going to put some time on my calendar, 30 minutes on my calendar on Friday, to find those people who have done that position so that you can reach out to them and say, well, this is how I'm thinking about approaching it. You've done it. I can't necessarily do it the way you did it because I'm not you. I'm not coming through at the same time, but this is how I want to approach it. Does this seem viable? And not only that, once again, decision makers, if they don't know you're there, they don't know you're somebody that they should sponsor, one of those other words that we hear as well, in addition to mentoring. So once again, like everyone else said, it's about reaching out, taking time. Don't be afraid, but just making those connections once again to try to get to the places that you want to be.
Do we have any other questions on the floor? I will piggyback what Ebonee said and what LaRhonda said and what Indu said and what Dhivya said. I may not be your mentor, but I'm connected to several people that might be. And so never be afraid to ask. And so I have a couple of students and they're like, could you connect me with so-and-so? And this student is very special and they have so many wonderful attributes. And so I connect them and I'm saying, hey, this is an exceptional student. And I would really like for you to take a minute and talk to so-and-so about, and they have to tell me what they want to talk to them about. So that way I can leverage my connections to help a student where my particular wheelhouse is not amenable to them. It's not a really great fit for them, but somebody in my network is. And so there's always an opportunity to help somebody and elevate somebody else, just surely by saying, yes, I'll help. And so, and how could I help you? So, anybody have any other questions? Well, we are getting close to time. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And know that this particular webinar, or I guess panel discussion, is being recorded. And so you can reference back to it. And again, thank you, Ebonee, LaRhonda, Dhivya, and you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.